The only thing that matters is the ending. It's the most important part of the story, the ending.
That's right, Johnny Depp. The ending is an important part of the story. So let's look at the endings of one of my favorite horror franchises, A Nightmare on Elm Street. Because as much as I love that franchise, a lot of the movie endings are not all that great. A little warning, this video contains spoilers for those who haven't seen all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. So the endings of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise usually have two elements. First, there's the way they defeat Freddy, and then there's the little moment where Freddy pops up right at the end to show he's not really dead. So let's start with the first one, 1984's A Nightmare on Elm Street. The way Nancy defeats Freddy by turning her back on him and taking away his powers is simple but very effective. The movie builds up to this moment, and even though it's not an epic ending, it really fits this story. Then there's the second part. There's this famous story of producer Bob Shaye and director Wes Craven arguing about what the ending should be. Wes Craven wanted a happy ending. Bob Shaye, however, wanted a scare at the end. They tried having Freddy drive the car, but eventually they used the ending where the car drives away by itself, and then Freddy grabs Nancy's mother, Marge. Yeah, that effect doesn't really hold up. Yet, the effects are still better than the 2010 remake. Well, we'll get to that one. Overall, this ending is pretty okay, and most importantly, it fits the story, is memorable, and is simple. And that can't be said about all the other endings in the franchise. So then we go to part 2, Freddy's Revenge. The movie gets more and more love from fans, and that's not a bad thing. The only thing is, the ending is still a little, let's say, weird. It starts with Lisa encountering these dogs who have human faces for some reason, and suddenly she has insects walking all over a wound on her leg. And then there's a mutated rat. Eventually she then faces Freddy and manages to defeat him with love.
I love you, Jesse!
Yeah, by telling Jesse she loves him, Freddy somehow catches fire and then Jesse pops up. Yeah, having your heroine take away Freddy's power is kinda like what the original did, only this one contains more dogs with human faces. During the final moments of the film, we go back to the moment where the film originally starts, the school bus, which is a very cool idea. In this ending, Freddy's hand tears through the chest of a girl, and our main characters scream. Whatever happens next to these characters? I guess we'll never know. Then we go on to the Dream Warriors. In this film, we get a lot more backstory to Freddy, and this backstory is actually used for the way they kill him. While Freddy is terrorizing the main teenagers in a dream, Dr. Neil Gordon buries the bones of Freddy and uses holy water and a crucifix to lay him to rest. Really Hammer horror style. The effects for this are actually pretty cool, especially when the cross appears in Freddy's forehead right before he disappears. It does bring up the question, if the parents of Springwood decided to bury Freddy like this from the start, instead of putting his remains in a trunk of a car, would Freddy have ever existed in the dream world? Then there's that little subtle moment at the end, which I really love. We see Neil Gordon asleep, and we see the house that Kristen built next to him. And instead of having Freddy's glove pop out of it, like in the trailer for this film, the light just turns on. It's very simple, but it's really effective, and actually one of my favorite end shots of any of the Nightmare films. Next up, it's The Dream Master. Now this film contains a bigger budget, and it really shows, especially at the end. Freddy has this amazing fight with Alice in a church, and the way all his victims are trying to get out of Freddy really looks great. Still, I'm not really sure what's going on. So Freddy dies because he sees his own reflection? Hell, in the previous movie he actually appears in multiple mirrors. I guess it has something to do with that Dream Master rhyme or something, but it really never made a lot of sense to me. But who cares, because this scene just kicks ass. And I also really love the moment where Freddy pops up one more time at the end. Again, no big dramatic or epic sequence, but just one simple shot of Freddy's reflection in the water waving his claw. It's very short, very subtle, but that's what I kind of like about it. What's not so subtle is the ending of The Dream Child. So here's what happens. Freddy pops out of Alice, her unborn child Jacob turns into a Freddy Krueger Jr. of some sort, and then spits out 3 victims in Freddy, who then pull a baby out of Freddy, and the baby then actually disappears into Freddy's mother, Amanda. Yeah, can you tell this movie was made during the writer's strike? Because I certainly have no clue what's going on here. Then the moment where Freddy pops up again actually happens right away after this scene, with this pretty cool shot of Freddy clawing his way out of his mother and a lot of doors shut down. Yet I do get the feeling this would have made for a much cooler ending. They decide to have one more final sequence with Alice, Yvonne, and her dad with the baby.
Hungry?
We all are.
Now, speaking of disappointing endings, let's go on to Freddy's Dead. Now, I'm one of those fans who really loves this movie for all sorts of reasons, but even I can see that this ending is not really what it should have been. This movie should have been the epic finale for Freddy, yet everyone was too busy with the whole 3D gimmick to actually come up with a decent ending. Here we get Freddy being hit by things and eventually explode because of a bomb. Not really the way you want your franchise to end, I imagine. What should they have done? Well, at least get Freddy back in Springwood and kill him there. Maybe in the old house, Elm Street? Maybe in the boiler room? Or maybe they should have just killed and buried him in the junkyard. Anything but this.
Kids.
Obviously, there's no little scene of Freddy coming back at the end of this one, but we do get a cool montage of all the films, which is worth something, I guess. Then we go on to Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Now, even though I really like this film for its creativity and style, I think I hate this ending the most. During the climax, we see that Heather Langenkamp has turned into Nancy for the final act. She suddenly wears the pajamas, her friend John turned into her father, Donald, and her house turned into Nancy's house. This could turn into an ending like the original, but instead Wes Craven went with the Hansel and Gretel story, where Heather suddenly appears in this Greek arena place and has to fight Freddy with snakes and then puts him in an oven of some sort so terrible CGI can kill him. And for some reason, I really found this ending the most disappointing because it doesn't fit with the rest of the film. An ending that does fit, however, is the ending for Freddy vs. Jason. Not a great film, but an entertaining action flick with two horror legends going at it celebrity deathmatch style. The fight gets extremely over the top and people lose body parts like it's nothing. It's especially fun how Freddy uses the machete on Jason at the end. Only you do wonder how Freddy got so strong in real life. I mean, in Freddy's Dead he couldn't survive a bomb, and in the original a teenage girl who turned her back on him was enough to kill him, and yet here he survives this. Eventually, it's too bad Monica Keena had to be the one killing Freddy instead of Jason, but other than that, this ending is pretty okay. Well, for the final shot of the film, the creators did play it safe and let both horror icons be alive at the end. Yet wouldn't it be fun to have a sequel with this setup? I mean, Jason continues killing at Crystal Lake while at his house, next to his mother's head, is the head of Freddy Krueger, who keeps talking to him. Kind of like The Odd Couple mixed with Reanimator. I would pay to see that. As for that other Nightmare on Elm Street, they get Freddy from a dream world and then slit his throat. The end. Oh yeah, and he appears in a mirror with effects that look even worse than the effects in the ending of the original. And even though Freddy pops up at the end of this film to show he's not really dead, I'm pretty sure we're not gonna see this Freddy again. At least, that's kind of what I hope. And a man can dream.